Welcome to episode 4 of the Cutter Files. We've got Jack, as usual, and Sean Gussie from Clenergy, and special guest Ivan, the Clengineer, as we like to refer to him, based out of Melbourne at Clenergy's head office, who will be joining us to, I guess, focus on something a bit different this time. We've had a few solar social media reviews, the interview with Alan Kemp that was extremely popular, but this time it's more about a spotlight on a pretty interesting topic relating to solar framing and solar racking in terms of dissimilar metals and things of that nature. So without further ado, we're going to sort of jump straight into it and have a bit of a discussion and just see where the facts lie, I guess, to hopefully provide some insight to you guys in the industry. So I'll kick it off. What are dissimilar metals? Who wants to jump in?
I think if you look down to the pure definition of dissimilar, it's just, two metals that are different. But then the concern is when two metals are together, when they are different, is there a risk of corrosion?
Yeah, and everyone just had that rubber foot.
Yeah, because it's more of they're just unsure. Okay, they're two different metals. Let's just separate them. Right?
Yeah, because everyone thought you had to have these different rubbers. But turns out that might not be the case.
Because corrosion is the big...
I think the rubber still plays a role in, for example, having rubber on the bottom of a tin foot is still good because, there's a hole there. You want to make sure the water's not going to go in and have a leaking roof and whatnot. But yeah, this is definitely something that's come up plenty of times over the years. It seems like it's a point of conjecture for a lot of people. There's a lot of people that are unsure whether it's okay. What is a dissimilar metal? I think it'd be good just to get, basically today for us is really, I wanted to do this because I wanted to let all the cutters out there know this is the research we've done. This is these are the areas, the companies, the standards that we're referring to get information about what's okay, what's not okay. And Ivan's done a hell of a lot of work on this. So hopefully we can shed some light on this today.
Took some classes, night classes. Read some books.
Yeah, they'll be booked out for months, I'm sure. So we'll move on to sort of continue to discuss the topic. So all different metals are considered dissimilar. Does that make sense? Is that a true statement? Anyone?
It's a self-affirming statement, really, isn't it? All different metals are considered dissimilar. I think we need to get down to what does dissimilar mean when you see that word, Ivan? And why is that important?
So even in everyday life, we see two dissimilar metals really compatible with each other. We've seen it all the time. You see it in jewelry. What else do you see it in? A lot of even in cars, you just see it everywhere. Two metals coming in contact, screws, washers. It's always two different metals coming together. So you just got to find out what metals are compatible with each other. They could be dissimilar, but they still could be compatible. I think that's the aim we should be looking.
And so there was you showed me something recently, Ivan. There was a graph where it was kind of we had zinc aluminum down one end and then gold at the other or something.
Yeah, so that's called the table, metal series table. And it has a list of metals in a chart, and the metals on the top of the chart are your noble metals, your passive metals, also known as cathodes. And then the metals at the bottom of the chart are your more reactive metals, and they are known as your anodes.
Okay. And on that chart, and Costa, I guess you'll probably bring this up in the editing, but I'm pretty sure there was, so aluminium was basically as close as you could get to the next metal down on that list, which was the same metal that they use, or BlueScope Steel uses, for example, on a lot of the, that they supply to a lot of these roof sheet manufacturers, right?
Yeah. So, BlueScope supplies to your Lysa, they supply to Fielders and all those other brands that we use. And obviously the base metal is steel. And then the coating that they use is this material, or this trademark material by BlueScope called zinc aluminum or Colorborn, which everyone's heard about it. And what's interesting is that this zinc aluminum or Colorborn, the base material of that coating is actually 55% aluminium. So when you think about it, we've got our aluminium clamps. We've got this coating on this roofing sheet that is almost basically aluminium. So the question is, are these two metals dissimilar? Or
so you're saying they're more similar than they are dissimilar as far as composition goes?
Correct. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Not ambiguous at all. So galvanically dissimilar. Where's that fit in?
Okay, so galvanically dissimilar is probably it will be the technical term which leads into corrosion. So what we're really concerned here is galvanic corrosion, right? That's when you got two galvanically dissimilar metals that are in contact with each other in the presence of a solvent, which can be water or rainwater, and that's when you start getting galvanic corrosion. So if you could have two dissimilar metals in contact to each other, but if they're not galvanically dissimilar, there is no issue there. So I think the real question is, how do you find out if two metals are galvanically dissimilar?
True.
I think that's the main concern for solar installers. I think that's where we get.
But were those questions asked when we were at Energy Matters 10 years ago? Like, was it sort of more black and white then?
It wasn't black and white. Everyone just assumed that, you're going to have that, galvanic corrosion in those corrosive environments, those two dissimilar metals. And I just thought if you just put the rubber on, it's fine. But then BlueScope released that paper and it sort of stated that, you don't necessarily need that rubber, for that specific purpose. And obviously you get all these different sides coming into it. And that's why Clenergy has sort of been honing in on it in the last couple of years. And you see it on Facebook sort of all the time. But no, that was the main concern. Yeah.
It's still a very grey area, even now.
Well, there's a lot of, sort of what we're going through now with Ivan, there's a lot of information out there now which sort of just says, no, it's fine. And you just present, the research and the paperwork. It sort of says it's fine. Well, my whole issue was there was this very narrow-minded view of, no, can't do it. You need the rubber. You're an idiot.
Change.
No, that's why they give us the rubber. And obviously that's obviously not necessarily true. That's why Ivan's been focusing on.
What I want to ask is, I don't know if you guys have any experience with this, is with, roof flashing and guttering, because not all the time you can get the same material as your roof cladding. What do you do there? Do you guys know?
As in?
Like flashing, when you do roof flashing or your ridge flashing or your gutters. I mean, they're all metal, but how do you, is there dissimilar concern there with, when people do roofing stuff like that? Because you still do flashing on even solar installs.
That's a good question.
Would you?
No one's really specifically asked about the flashing, the ridge capping or the gutters, because obviously we don't necessarily install in those areas. Yeah. But I think on commercial installations that'll be more of a concern, or even resi if you're running, like cable tray or a foot, which is sort of like it's on the flashing and it's running across with the cable, a conduit. That's a good question. Maybe you should expand your research into that, Ivan.
Yeah, I was just a passing thought. Because those have a lot more contact on the roof cladding compared to those little clamps.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. So how can you tell? How can you find out what's compatible? How can you work out if there's no risk of galvanic corrosion? Is there a simple way the installer can do that, Ivan?
Well, at the moment, there's three ways. So one way we already talked about is looking at that series of metal table, which you can actually get that from BlueScope website. The second option, which is a bit more technical but a bit more definitive, is to look at the standard called UL 2703, and it's actually specifically to solar mounting structures. So in this standard, which you can probably show a picture of it, open up. It establishes the potential difference between the two metals. So this is you're looking at the electrochemical difference between two metals. And if the difference is really high, that sort of defines how far they are apart on that table. So on the table currently on BlueScope, you just got a list of metals, but you don't know what how they are ranked. You know what I'm saying? So with this table from from the 2703 standard, they actually define how far they are by a voltage. So if the difference between the two metals are more than 0.6 volts, then there is a risk of galvanic corrosion.
Is that what that line is? That line that comes through and sort of zigzags down?
What line are you looking at?
Oh, I'm looking at this UL table.
In the middle of the table.
Yeah, the UL 2703. So there's this kind of zigzag line that comes through the middle. What's that all about?
I just look at the values.
Okay. So the lines are relevant. So what was the number again?
So 0.6.
Oh, it's about, yeah.
Anything above 0.
That's where the line
is. That's what it is.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah.
For future reference, Ivan.
There you go. Maybe we can just edit that part out.
No, leave that one in, Costa.
I am, yeah.
Ivan.
Yeah.
You've obviously, I don't think it was in the email, but there's a BlueScope Technical Bulletin CTB-12.
2005 or something.
2003.
2003, yeah, I read that one.
On dissimilar metals, aluminium accessories are compatible with all common roofing materials, including galvanized iron, zinc aluminum, and color bond, which is the summary. And then it goes on to say that, well, this is not what it's saying, but another racking manufacturer went on to say that their L-feed was supplied with an EPDM washer, which is installed between the L-foot and the roof cladding material, which its primary purpose is to mitigate water ingress around the roofing screw, but also to provide protection against electrochemical corrosion between the L-foot and the roof sheet. But then, which sort of answers the question around the primary reason for that washer or that rubber pad there. So it's a bit more involved than what we initially thought 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, with the screws, I think that's something we can't change. We're going to need that EPDM on the base. And that, again, that's really to help with the water resistance side of things.
Because the screws, they're stainless steel, aren't they?
Carbon steel with a coating on it. I can't remember what coating is on. But you're talking about the L-foot EPDM on the base, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so that rubber, I mean, it serves two purposes. One, obviously to separate the two metals, because we don't know what metal sheeting those L-foots are being installed on. There's like so many different variations. You got iron, steel, all kinds of variations. So is that rubber there we probably can't go away with, but that rubber also plays a part of the water resistance.
How long does the rubber last generally on the roof?
Good question. We actually went through this debacle a couple of years. I don't know, you can remember, Sean, with that massive project we had? The EPDM rubbers and the frameless clamps.
No. Must have been one of your projects, mate.
I think even still, if it's not exposed to weather, it can last over 10, 15 years.
It's a no-brainer to have, the washer there, the rubber pad, the washer, because obviously it comes pre-affixed to the L-foot generally. But I think you guys, Clenergy, you released the universal clamp, which didn't have the washer, and which I think that brought this topic to life a few months ago, and the product was released. So talk us through that a little bit, if we can just go off topic. Well, still relative, but
just quickly, maybe there was just to finish off the last conversation.
Oh, sorry.
No, there was one more point Ivan had, I think, about identifying the.
Yes. So there were 3 options. One is the table of metals, which you can get off BlueScope. The UL standard 2703, and the third standard, which actually is the coolest, I think, is that you can actually look at the roofing supplier, say it's a LISAT 406 or whatever. You can look in the install guide, and they actually tell you what materials are directly compatible to be in contact with the roofing sheet, with the cladding. So they've done that purposely. It's probably not with solar in mind, but it was mainly around, you know, flashing, guttering, water drainage, and all that kind of things. But they actually have a table, which you can actually pop up now, that shows what components can be in direct contact, which I think answers a lot of questions, which is going to be the easiest way, or the confidence for the installers.
Which the manufacturers weren't giving out previously. This is something newer that sort of happened, that they provided this information.
I don't know. I think it's actually been around. I just, you know, when you start digging for stuff, you start finding things. So Lysa had one. I found one for Fielders as well, almost identical, because they all get stuff from BlueScope, right?
Yeah.
And therefore, they've got this table of, you know, what materials can go directly in contact with their roof cladding. And they've got aluminium. They've got aluminium and yes for, you know, zinc aluminum, for Colourborn Ultra, which is all the roofing sheets you see for, you know, 406, 700, all those guys.
So
I thought that was pretty
if
interesting.
I'm looking at the same one, it looks like the only one it doesn't work on is the
stainless steel.
Stainless steel, is that right? Okay.
So this is also on this table. What's interesting is that, you know, you've got LED on right at the right hand side there, and it's pretty much no. And LED, I think LED flashing is pretty popular. I see it a lot. People use LED flashing. So LED flashing and zinc aluminum, it's pretty much not compatible. And I started digging a bit more and actually found out a lot of rust issues on a lot of clip lock roofs when people use LED flashing, and it's just destroyed the roof. I thought, yeah.
But then the solar installer gets the blame anyway.
Yeah. Solar installer called up to fix it. My roof's leaking.
You're the last one on my roof. Yeah. Is Clenergy going to have a guide, like a tech bulletin guide with all this information sort of summarized for high quality installers?
Yes.
Looking into this?
Yes. So I've been working on a little, like a table to summarize everything. So I think Costa, I might have sent you the table. Maybe?
If you do it,
you'll pop it up.
It's coming up now. If you did, yeah.
So on the left-hand side, you've got all the roofing sheets that we've done testing on, and our claims are credited for. And then it pretty much, I think on the right-hand side, it tells you whether you can, according to the roof manufacturer, whether you can have direct contact or not. So this is not even Clenergy saying. This is, you know, Lysat, Fielders, Stratco, those guys are saying you can have aluminium in contact.
What does the CEC say? That's the question.
Don't they just say refer to manufacturer's guidelines?
Yeah. No, actually, I looked up the CEC has done well on this one. So they've actually, hold on one second.
Don't mind us, yeah.
They've actually went, so instead of saying, you know, no dissimilar metals, they actually went one step ahead and they said no dissimilar metal, no galvanically dissimilar metals. So they've got, so I found, all right, so no galvanically dissimilar metals are in contact with the array frame or supports. So that's actually the technical term of saying it. Because if you say dissimilar metals, that's still broad, isn't it?
Yeah.
But if you say galvanically dissimilar, then you have to find out what is galvanically dissimilar. Then you look at the option 1, 2, and 3 is what we just talked about.
Which is more relevant for solar installers affixing to a roof.
Where was that? Where is that written down?
Yeah, is that in the like design guidelines, or is that like
it was in the design guidelines. I think towards the back during the you know appendix, yeah,
appendix, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure if we can we'll find it and we'll put it up on the screen just to highlight it to people. All those ASRs, I'm sure, are aware of it. What were you going to say, Jack, to Ivan, before I hijacked your comment? Sorry. Yeah. Oh, you forgot.
No, because obviously I think we're talking about the fact that the L-foot always came with the rubber washer sort of prefixed onto it, so it was always like a non-issue. The issue was that originally it was when Sunlock they had the clamps, so the 700, 406 and a 305 clamps, they came with the rubber washer in the bag. And then there were situations where the installer didn't have any rubber washers. So they weren't sure if they should install the clamp without. And then some installers thought one of the primary purposes of the rubber washer was to pad out the clamp, so it could fit the crest.
I've had guys ask me if it works without the rubber. Can I take the rubber out?
Yeah, and then but then you guys released the universal clamp, and it doesn't come with the rubber washer.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get a lot of questions about that and its use, or not?
It hasn't, like, surprisingly, no, from my end. I'm not sure about you, Ivan, but there hasn't been a lot of.
From my side, there's been a few. They've been asking, is it okay? What's the deal? What's the rubber?
Okay.
I've had some that actually. Was that, Jack?
Yeah, but then you don't just refer them to this like massive table. Different materials. Do you just say no? It's okay.
No, I try to explain to it. Look, it's okay.
Yeah.
These are the reasons, just in a nutshell, why we've done it. I mean, the easiest way to get them to agree or to instill confidence is that I will refer that Lyosat table, which is pretty. I think that's pretty, black and white.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to. I guess the point of this to try to make it black and white, because even smarter people than me are still a bit unaware what can and cannot be done.
It really only comes up when we're talking about like concealed fixings and the use of clamps, obviously without the rubber washer. I think that's when this topic really comes, to life, especially on social media, not so much with, regular L feet. It's already there kind of thing.
But most other framing manufacturers have the rubbers on the L feet as well. Like everyone's pretty consistent like that. Yeah. But what are other roof clamps? Like other roof clamps for other manufacturers? Do they have the rubber pads? Are you aware? Or?
It's in the concealed roof clamps.
Yeah, do they all have the washers on them? The rubber washers?
I know in our Asian markets, a lot of them don't. I don't know if you noticed that, Sean. A lot of our Asian Japanese friends don't use the rubber.
Not using a lot of rubber in Asia.
Yeah.
We're trying to keep this serious.
Yeah, in their clamps. I opened the door for you. I thought you wanted to take that to another level.
No talk of doors. Don't talk about rubbers. Don't talk about doors.
Not even one. So, you gotta have at least one shop.
I mean, yeah, when we went to release this, because it's not a small thing to get the rubber onto that product.
No, it's not.
And we played around with that for a while, and finally, while we were still in the development phase, I just thought, I'm just going to ask the question. I'll talk to a lot of the guys out in the field that are doing a lot of the large scale commercial projects, and I'll just ask the question. I said, what are some of the other manufacturers doing when you're using their products in certain cases? We all know who they are, and they said, look, a lot of times they don't provide them with the rubber at all. And I said, so if Clenergy released something, would you feel comfortable using it? And then they obviously wanted a bit more information, and I explained basically what we're going through now. And they said, well, yeah, I mean, we've done it in the past already, so there's no reason we wouldn't do it in the future. So from our perspective, we wanted to just get the product out there because we'd done so much testing on it, and there was still so many questions coming through from guys just needing solutions. And at the same time, it helped us to really confirm what we needed to know about the subject, and then here we are today, just wanting to clarify that. So I think, to answer your question, I think there are other manufacturers in Australia that supply these solutions without rubber.
I don't think that's a good answer. I don't think S5 supply a rubber.
Well, that was one of the ones I asked about. Schletter was another one, I think. And so, yeah, that was pretty much along the lines of the response that I got from the guys that have used those products.
Because historically, clamps are relatively, new in the solar industry. They weren't, there from the get-go, while I started in 2009, and there was, no clamps really being used, and that was back when, using Conergy. And the early method up until like 2011, 2012 was just, drilling straight through the pan of, the sheet with the L-foot, which obviously has, disastrous consequences, for water pooling as well. So, and then the clamps came out, and then no one knew what they were doing. So it's come a long way, especially now with that universal clamp and doing away with the rubber on it. Because, a lot of installers don't even, check what kind of roof sheet. They probably wouldn't pull up the sheet to check what sheet it is. They just sort of see if the clamp fits. And if it fits, sort of off they go kind of thing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So on the water pooling stuff, what about it, Ivan? You had some comments you wanted to add about that?
Yeah, I think Sean, you might have been the one who raised it. An installer said, "What about the water pooling?"
Mm-hmm.
Look, water pooling is never good, right? When you got two metals in contact with each other, water pooling is never good. But it just keeps coming back to, are the two metals galvanically dissimilar? Because you could have two similar metals with water and still okay, but if it's two galvanically dissimilar metals and then you add water into the equation, that's when you have galvanic corrosion. So yeah, to answer your question, if there's water and if there's water and the two metals are galvanically dissimilar, then yes, then you will have galvanic corrosion.
Okay, so to ask another way, if I'm on a Cliplock 700 roof and I'm using an I-34 universal Clenergy clamp with no rubber, and there's water pooling, am I going to have an issue?
If it's a Lysart Cliplock 700 with the I-34, then you will not have any issues.
Okay.
Because the two metals are not galvanically dissimilar.
And that's where we come back to that table, right? Where it's got to be less than 0.6 or whatever it was. Okay.
So when Lysart created that table of compatibility, they had to take into consideration water, rain, and all that sort of things. Because it's not just solar. It's, again, it's flashing, it's the gutters, all that kind of things.
Does coastal environments have an enhanced effect, or
good question?
Galvanically?
Yeah, that is actually a really good question. So again, we can go back to what the roofing manufacturers say. So for example, off the top of my head, I can't really remember, but I think you need to install color-borne stainless steel if it's Lysart on those coastal areas, those high wind coastal areas, so C4, C5. And if you use those roofing sheets there, I think you can't use the I-34.
Yeah.
Not without some sort of separation, I guess.
Yeah. So it comes down to what the base material is on the roof. So if they've installed a zinc aluminum or color-borne standard, color-borne ultra, then you're okay because they're still considered not galvanically dissimilar. But if they use one of those roofing sheets that are on the list that it says no aluminium, and there's a couple of them, that's when you can't use the I-34.
And with coastal environments as well, do you take into consideration high salt spray? Or does that sort of all take that into account?
So that just, it does accelerate the process, but if they're not galvanically dissimilar, you're really not accelerating much.
Okay, because you always get questions from customers, not so much installers anymore, more customers where, I live 50 meters from the beach.
Yeah.
And obviously a lot of customers, they mainly ask about, the solar module on the roof and the inverter. Obviously try to get the inverter inside. And then oddly enough, you do get customers asking about the racking.
Yeah.
So do you guys have a general minimum distance from, high salt spray?
Wasn't there a table? Wasn't there a table about this from Lysart or from BlueScope or one of those manufacturers, Ivan? I thought I remembered seeing something about the actual environment itself. Maybe I'm just imagining it.
I guess if we know what we're talking about, we can pop it up here. But just to sort of answer your question, Jack.
Yeah.
When we look at corrosion, I think there's three main types of corrosion. There's galvanic corrosion, which is what we've been talking about when we've got two galvanically dissimilar metals in contact. We've got atmospheric corrosion. That's when you're near to the coastal and you got high salt spray, or you could even be in a high industrial area where you've got the air is contaminated with small electrical ions or something like that, metal ions in the air. That falls under atmospheric corrosion. And then you've got a third, which is I think it's called stress crack corrosion. It's when metals go through high stress and they actually break and then they corrode from inside. That's the third, which I don't think we really see. We're really concerned with the first two. With atmospheric corrosion, what we have done is that we've got products that are anodized that can handle up to C4, C5. There's some items that need to be changed. For example, the screws. You need to use C4, C5 screws in those environments. But in terms of our core product, including the cutter reel and all that stuff, it is applicable in that environment.
Cool.
In that C4, C5.
Learning something every day.
Yeah, there you go.
Where have you been all our life?
Well, I usually just give the customer Ivan's mobile number. So I'll just ask them directly.
You want to give that now on the live?
Nah, don't be flashing our numbers.
Or his home address or something. Now people can visit. Yeah, they can line up from the porch. After water pooling, we wanted to discuss scratching the ribs. What does that refer to?
This one I actually heard from one of the installers actually. So I don't know. Is it a common thing? I'm not really sure. But do people fasten the clamps on and they might kick it or move it to get in position? Do you guys think that's like a common practice?
I don't know if it's common. I'm sure it happens.
Well, normally they just they like affix the clamp, so it's relatively tight, and then they tighten all up once they've sort of got the rest of the racking on, and that's how you get it sound.
I mean, I'm sure I did raise this with you. I mean, I think it just comes down to like duty of care, right? I mean, if you're scratching the roof, isn't that the same as like breaking tiles, and you're not really taking care of your environment? What do you guys think?
I don't think scratching is good practice.
No, it's not, right?
But it's like when you do all this good work, use your clamps, you're not penetrating the roof, and then they go put a massive deck tight straight through the pan. Not the crest, it just makes you think, what are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when it comes to scratching, that is definitely an issue for.
When you say ribs, you mean like the crest, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We're on the same page.
Same page.
But yeah, I mean, I saw one picture of they installed the clam, and I don't know why, but they had to move it, so they just pretty much like dragged it or kicked it, so it just scratched pretty much the panes off the roof, and then obviously the base metal exposed, the coating of the roofing sheet is damaged. And yes, I mean, there you're now exposed to not only galvanic corrosion, but also atmospheric corrosion.
And warranty corrosion.
Yeah, that's all.
I'm sure they're good for it.
Get blamed.
I think we sort of just touched on the next discussion point about the L feet, about the rubber pads. Was there anything else you guys wanted to add with that again, or we pretty much covered most of it, I think?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we pretty much covered everything about the L foot.
And the last sort of key thing I want to discuss before we go into sort of summarize what we're talking about was the old roof clamp versus the new one. And I know you have discussed it, but comparing the universal clamp, the old ER09 and whatever the hell the other one was, I've got it actually here. I've got it on my desk. Look, see all the roof clamps.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
we should get that like laminated and sent out with like sample packs.
No, you should do the all the clamps,
the key ring, yes,
the key ring for installers to keep in the van for site inspections. And I did raise that initially, but then you guys just back in my face.
Was that your idea? I thought that was someone else's idea.
No, it was my idea, and then it was my idea, and then Mick sort of cut my lunch with it. Because I used to do the earth cable, but then he's like, "Oh no, we'll put like some proper key ring."
Earth cable would be cool.
But then you guys blew back in my face and said, "No, we have a universal clamp. See you later."
Yeah, but I mean, there's no reason we couldn't do the universal clamp keyring. So,
well, no, I think you should do all of them.
Okay, it's a pretty big keyring there.
No, I mean like one for installers to take up during site inspections.
So it's not actually going to be on
mini,
the keys.
Not like a Coles mini little.
No, like a real, just the four clamps, the universal and the other three, all together in a chain.
Yeah,
you can even chain it on your belt and just carry it around.
You could just wear it like bling around your neck.
Oh yeah, it's next level.
Because just to get back to the question, a lot of installers are still fairly comfortable with the older clamp.
You know what we could do? We could actually, on the plates of the IO9 or even the I-34, we can engrave all the roofing sheets that it's compatible with.
Well, yeah, because with those kits we used to make, we used to write on the top of the plate 406 700, just so they grab it from the van during the site inspection, and then they take a photo of it on. So then, as a designer, I know what clamp to use in my bill of materials.
On the packaging,
I bet we just, rather than just having someone engraving each one of these things, can we just put a sticker on the box to start with, Ivan, and then maybe down the line if we need to,
Stickers on boxes, come on,
engrave messages to the installers on each of the products.
I think you should be holding installers both hands at this point. Let's put it in big letters, 700, 406. I
mean, these days that with the universal, it's probably easier just to engrave the ones that it's not suitable for than the ones that it is suitable for, right?
And on that note,
they're gonna figure that out for sure.
Is it suitable now with 305 at Longline?
The universal.
Yeah.
How did we finish on that?
Good question. Did we?
It's on the piece of paper.
Okay, if it's on there, then
there
it
you
is.
go.
Yep.
It's the last one.
Because that was on the last sprint, wasn't it, Ivan?
I
think that was. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we added it in the last.
The last one added. I just print this off today for.
Yes, it's true. I did. I remember doing the webmail for that one. Yeah, it is suitable for the 305. The space, look, I probably wouldn't use it in a pinch. It'd be good if it means you have to drive back and pick up some I-29s from somewhere. But the spacings aren't really very good compared to the I-29. So, but yeah, it is suitable.
From a wholesale perspective, the universal makes total sense. Like the amount of times that I've asked, like, what roof profile is it? They got no idea. Generally no idea. And that's it. And like, I get like it costs maybe a little bit more, but look, for the sake of having something in the back of your van and ready to go, like, well, you solve your problem.
At the moment, from designing remotely, we're sending out 3 different roof clamps.
Really?
Times the required average quantity, and then the installer returns what they don't use when they pick up the next job. So the universal makes sense from like a warehousing and a picking and packing point of view, which is why I'm pretty excited about us.
All the keyring.
Well, when she said you can use it on like Longline, doesn't really matter now about the keyring. Because they had the main 3. Was it 406, 700, and 305 Longline are the main ones? Then you get all those in between ones, I guess, but they're not that common, I guess.
We still need to find a way for installers to be able to identify these roofs a lot easier.
Well,
wasn't someone doing some sort of app or like they take or was that us, Jack? I can't remember.
We discussed
that was me. I was working on that little side hustle. Yeah.
How much for the app?
I was going to try and create an app. So you take your phone, right, and then you just point the camera at the roof, the profile, and then it tells you what it is. But really, there was no back end. It just says I-34 every time.
Then the app's like $4.
None of the sales have gone up.
No, look, I think if it makes sense, like a lot of the guys that have changed over to the universal mid and end clamps, for the same reason that made sense, these will make sense as well. So, you know.
Well, yeah, I think
installers, they just they measure up, the sheet width, and then the crest width and height.
The rib height.
Yeah, sorry, crest, rib. I was brought up saying pan and crest. Yeah, and then you sort of just work it out. But then I think we discussed in the sprint that's a bit more complicated than that to get it right with the sheet. I think we discussed that.
Didn't you speak to BlueScope recently, Sean, to find out something we can do on this?
Yeah, I'm talking to him at the moment. But yeah, to answer your question, Longy, yeah, it's more complicated than that. I mean, really, you can give us all the details you want. At the end of the day, we can't. There could be another manufacturer out there that manufactured an identical profile to something else that we've tested with. So even if you give us some measurements on a roof profile that match something that we've done testing on, we don't know that it's that roof. It could be a copy of that roof, in which case the clips could be inferior, in which case the roof sheet might come off the roof under the same load as a Lysar product or whatever. So
generally when installers do site inspections, they don't commonly lift the sheet. And they just sort of, they put the clamp on. If it feels sound, and they sort of just say, it's this 700, then we just give them 700 clamps. Generally, obviously, other installers might do it a bit more thoroughly. So what's the proper way if you're an installer doing a site inspection on top of a, roof, a clip lock roof? What's sort of the best way to do it properly at this stage?
If you can get the drawings, so the as-built drawings that specify what roof sheeting was used, that's always a really good indicator. Failing that, if you can lift the roof sheet or get underneath and somehow see some labeling on the roof sheeting, that's another good way. Failing that, really the only other way to confirm what type of roof sheeting you're dealing with is to do an actual on-site test. And so something that we're working on is something they've been doing over in some of the Asian offices is, it was really cool. They actually put together it was like a rig where they used all Clenergy products to create what would you call it, Ivan? I don't know.
Like a pulley system kind of.
Yeah, and then you attach one of the, so it's like a bar across and then down, and it's got feet that sits on the roof. And then you attach one of these, I don't know what these things are called.
Is Andre still there? Because he knows the technical name for it.
But anyway, the thing that you attach to the clamp, and then you pull up and it applies pressure to the roof sheeting, and you can do like a non-destructive test. That's actually something that that we've spoken about in the sprint already. So
we play
that gets voted on, and
video?
that's sorry.
Could we play that video on here?
Yeah, Ivan, I think.
Yeah, we've got it. I've got it. I can show it to Costa.
Yeah, so I'll send it to Matt Hines next time he's doing a site inspection. He's doing it all wrong. So he's like, you have to have this in the back of the van.
That's it. And you can go MacGyver styles and just we'll just have a guide how to cut this piece this long and then attach the bolts here. And then, you just need your little machine. And
because you really set yourself apart from the Bill Buster mobs when you rock up for the site inspection, you got this contraption in the van.
Totally. It's even better if you've forgotten it and you can make it up from stuff you got in the van. So
wheeling it out to us.
It's actually better even on an engineering point of view, because you're actually getting real life data. It's going to be better than referencing the standards or doing calculations based on assumptions. So you end up using less clamps, you save costs on materials and all that kind of stuff.
So let's say you're on site and there's no labels under the sheet. You don't know what the sheet is. It's 20, 30 years old. Then it might be 700, it fits the clamp. Are you saying that you can't technically use that clamp because you don't know what the sheet is, or
I mean, you can use the clamp, but at the end of the day, who takes responsibility, right?
Yeah.
And so at some point, someone's got to take ownership of this job. And if you can confirm what the roof sheet is, then you can pass some of that ownership onto Clenergy and the engineers. Yeah. If you can't, then you've got to take full ownership. Or get the customer to sign off on that, which might be difficult,
Right.
We were talking, just sort of summarize again what we were discussing. Ivan, just want to have a little 30-second to a minute summary of the galvanic.
Jeez, all right. Yeah, so in essence, two different metals are considered dissimilar, but they're not a concern unless they're galvanically dissimilar. So how do we determine if they are galvanically dissimilar? There's three options. One is that we can look on the metal or series tables, and you can easily get that off BlueScope Steel. Option two is we look at the standard called UL 2703, and which is specifically for solar mounting. And in that standard, if the two metals that are in contact each other is more than 0.6, it's a concern. If it's less than 0.6, it's not a concern. And then the last option is that you look at the roofing manufacturer's installation guide, and they normally say what kind of materials can be in contact with their roof cladding. So this covers, accessories, water drainage, gutters, flashing, all that kind of things. And it's safe to include clamps as well. So that's pretty much galvanic corrosion and how our I-34 is okay to be with those roofing sheets. What Clenergy is going to do is Clenergy is going to send out a table pretty much of all the roofing sheets that we have certified for, and a yes or no if the I-34 can be in direct contact with that roofing cladding.
And do we have a timeline for that tech bulletin, or are we looking by the end of the year? We're hopeful, or
yeah, by the end of the year we should get something out. Maybe hopefully we'll time it in time with this video release. Send it out both together.
We moved pretty quickly.
You're pretty quick.
Yeah.
Your first one took like a month or two, wasn't it?
Oh, you won't be on the next one. But yeah.
No, well, let me know. I'll get it done before your video release.
We'll see. Yeah. And then, obviously it's good highlighting how the water pooling stuff, the scratching the ribs, the L feet with and without the rubbers. I think it was a lot of really good sort of content there. Did Sean or Jack have much else to add before we sign off?
No. Just on the summary, if you're going to put a summary out, maybe if you put sort of a little blurb about the primary purpose of the rubber foot as well, just with like the screws and water ingress and that as well, just so some more clarity around that would be good. Mainly for my peace of mind.
Cheat sheets are always good. Saves us calling and harassing you guys. So yeah, but yeah, look, Sean, you're always very available to us. We enjoy your company. Ivan, thank you for gracing us with your presence and your knowledge and your research.
Yeah. Thank you. Big fan.
I think we'll definitely get you back on again. With or without Sean, we're not sure, because a bit of a weird dynamic there going.
I'm happy to be in behind the curtains. Keep that. Sean and I had an agreement at the start. I don't know why I'm here in the first place. But
expert.
We're just going to test the water, test the market, see how popular this one is with you in it, and
you got to really just have it with just him in the next one, then, just to really see what the test is.
Give us an interesting topic. Fucking dissimilar metals.
You guys just solar framing. Like, what else you got?
It's hardly exciting.
Solar framing.
There's a lot of exciting stuff, right? Yeah.
Well, solar framing is not that exciting, but thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Sean. Thanks, Jack. And we'll see you with episode 5 in the near future. See you, everyone.
Guys.